All right, good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday morning. Hopefully you're having a good one so far. I'm Tampa Bay meteorologist Grant Gilmore, and I appreciate you guys tuning in. We're just firing this thing up now. I appreciate you being patient with the slate there off the top, but I do want to talk about, obviously, Tropical Storm Elsa. Before I get too far into it, see some of you are already throwing in some comments there. By all means, throw the comments in. I'll try to answer the questions along the way, or at least try to answer them as much as I can, because the overwhelming theme in this is going to say a lot of uncertainty in the long-range forecast and what potential impacts we could see here in Tampa Bay. So that's where we are right now. Let me know if you have any audio issues, or if you can hear me. If we're a-okay, then we can go ahead and rock and roll, and we can get going with this thing. But overall, hopefully you're having a good morning so far. That's kind of how we want to start off, on a good note, right? Let me start off with this schedule here. We're starting to kind of brush off the rust, talking about the tropics here in Tampa Bay. So we're looking at an update that just came down at 8 o'clock. This is the advisory schedule. This is important because this is going to tell us when we get new information from the National Hurricane Center. Not all advisories, though, are created equal. The 8 a.m. advisory that we just got is called an intermediate advisory. That just gives any updates to watches or warnings, and really the storm details, things like the storm's speed or the storm's winds and location. The big updates that come with a new forecast cone for a tropical system, those happen at 5 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock in the morning, so we'll get one here soon at 11 o'clock later this morning, and then 5 o'clock in the afternoon and 11 o'clock in the evening. Those 2 and 8 o'clocks, AM and PMs, again, those are just intermediate advisories that give us location, speed, track, and just some updates to watches and warnings. So just know we don't get a new cone every time we get a new advisory. But here's what we're tracking this morning at 5 o'clock. The National Hurricane Center said, yep, this thing is a tropical storm. It was a tropical depression yesterday evening, but it has been gradually strengthening through the overnight. I'll take you down there and you get a picture of it. You can see, even with the untrained eye, that the system is gradually strengthening and beginning to take on more of that tropical look, right? You've got those thunderstorms that are firing up near the center of that counterclockwise circulation. And then as the system, moves into the last 6 hours or so, you can see what we call fanning, or that exhausting of those upper level clouds there to the north and west. And that's just a sign that the system is going to gradually strengthen. There's some relatively favorable conditions for strengthening with this, but one thing that's going to hold it back is going to be its quick speed. Notice that there at the top of the screen. You see how those wind speeds, or the storm itself, is moving to the west. So it's moving to the west very quickly at 25 miles per hour. So it's going to be approaching the Lesser Antilles pretty quickly. There's already tropical storm warnings up for Barbados, Martinique, and some of the smaller islands there in that island chain. Here's the latest forecast cone. This is from the 5 o'clock advisory this morning, and we'll just jump ahead to when it could be heading toward Florida and the United States. It looks like that time frame for the system, the center of the system arriving in the Keys, would be sometime Tuesday morning, but we very well could see tropical storm conditions earlier than that if the forecast verifies for the way that it looks right now. Now, here's the thing. Once it moves across Cuba into the warm waters of the Florida Straits and then up the east or the west coast of Florida in the eastern Gulf of Mexico, these are very warm waters here, and so there would be the potential that the system could strengthen. Cuba would tear it up with the mountainous terrain over Cuba, but once it moves into the warm waters of the Straits and the eastern Gulf of Mexico, we very well could see a strengthening system. Now, that's a big if at this point, and I think I really need to pause and underscore that point, because the forecast models are literally split on, does it go west and go up the coast, or at least into the eastern Gulf, or does it weaken potentially and go east up towards the east coast of Florida, or maybe even farther east out towards the Bahamas. So there's a large spread in the forecast models. I'll show you that in just a second, but let's talk about the current forecast from the Hurricane Center. This map shows you the probability that we're going to see tropical storm winds, which would be sustained winds at 39 miles per hour or stronger. And given the current forecast, we could potentially begin to see those tropical storm force winds arrive as early as Monday morning. That's the most likely timing But there's only about depending on where you are in the Tampa Bay region or just across Florida, a 5 to 10% chance of receiving those tropical storm conditions right now, where we stand at 8:19 on our Thursday morning. So there's still quite a bit of uncertainty in that longer range forecast, but even so, we have to start thinking that there's the possibility we could see those tropical storm conditions arrive in the area as we go into the beginning of next week. So looking at Monday morning, Monday afternoon, and then Tuesday and Wednesday as well. Let me show you the latest spaghetti models. Each one of these forecast models, well, if I could, I don't know why that's not working here. These should be working. So let me give it a chance for these things to load here. I don't know why they're not showing up. That's unfortunate. But we can remedy that, and we'll just, let me show you the two main models that we talk about on TV are the GFS model, which is more commonly referred to as the American model, right? The GFS model is certainly on the stronger end of the forecast models for its intensity. And this is starting off Saturday at 5 o'clock. And I started on Saturday because that's where the models begin to diverge in the thinking for the potential of what's going to happen. So right now, when we're looking at this system, here's what would be Elsa, tropical storm, potentially a hurricane. The GFS saying, there's a possibility it strengthens to a hurricane as it moves across the warm waters of the Caribbean. Notice how it stays south of Hispaniola. Hispaniola has a lot of mountains, so if the storm tracks a little bit farther north, it would likely be a weaker system. The farther south it is, the stronger it's going to be, and the GFS is really hanging on to that idea. Watch what happens as we make our way through the weekend. This is Sunday. It stays south, and it actually cuts right in between Jamaica, maybe hitting Jamaica a little bit on the northern coast there. And then it starts to head toward western Cuba into Tuesday morning. Now notice we would start to be getting those heavy, maybe some northern rain bands, some gustier winds here in Tampa Bay on Tuesday morning, Monday night. And then the storm starts to really crank itself up as it goes through the eastern Gulf of Mexico. The latest forecast model, though, with the GFS has taken it a little bit farther west. So it's taken a little bit farther to the left of the screen. The run before that, it was a little bit east, closer to Tampa Bay. We're going to see these flip-flops over the next day or so. I think the real question mark, though, is what happens after Saturday? After Saturday, because that's when the European model really starts to say, look, that's not going to happen. It's going to do something else. This is what the European model says. And pardon, it says tracking Invest 97L at the top. When I made this graphic yesterday, it was Invest 97L. Now it's obviously Elsa. But taking it into Saturday morning, very similar to the GFS. A little bit weaker, though, I will say, a tropical storm. But overall, looking at it being a system there through Saturday morning south of the DR and Haiti. But then the European just takes it north. It gets chewed up by the high mountainous terrain over Hispaniola, which, I mean, they'll get some heavy rain, some tropical downpours, the potential for some flash flooding and gusty winds. But it doesn't really survive the passage across Hispaniola. It moves into the Bahamas as just an area of disorganized showers and storms, and then it's really a non-issue. So therein lies the big question mark that the models are really having a hard time agreeing on what's going to happen between Saturday and, we'll say, Tuesday of next week, but honestly between Saturday and Monday. So things will really become more clear as we head through Friday and Saturday. I think after Saturday we should have a better idea of what's going to happen, or at least potentially what's going to happen. We've got this ridge of high pressure up to the north, and that ridge of high pressure is really going to be that steering mechanism that will help direct it on its way. But of course, this is the steering mechanisms in place depending on what type of system it's going to be steering. If it's that weaker system, then it looks like it might drift a little bit more to the north, and it very well could be a non-issue by the time it hits Hispaniola. And then so we're looking at two very different tracks and different outcomes for what we could be seeing here in Tampa Bay. One of the factors that I think the models are really struggling with this is how does it handle its fast forward speed, right? So if you noticed, it's moving to the west at 25 miles per hour. This thing's moving really fast. Now the sustained winds are at 40 miles per hour. That's just above tropical storm strength, but its forward speed at 25 miles per hour is hauling. And when you get storms that move that fast, it's really difficult for an ideal structure to develop within that system to be able to maintain itself as a strengthening system. Tropical systems like an organized structure all through the column of the atmosphere, so all the way up and down in the storm. But if it's moving fast at the surface, the whole system gets tilted, and it's just not able to, for a lack of a better phrase, breathe properly. And if you don't have a storm that can breathe properly, then it's not able to take these deep breaths and strengthen and get bigger and bigger and bigger. So the models are having a hard time in trying to figure out, okay, is this fast speed to the west really going to hold it back, or is it not an issue, and is the storm able to maintain itself that way? So that's where we stand as of, like I mentioned, Thursday morning. I say it's early, but in terms of actual time, and we're 5 days out from potentially seeing some impacts here in Tampa Bay, and then maybe just 3 days out from really seeing if that's even possible. So there's definitely going to be some more information, and the forecast becomes a little more clear over the next couple of days. So we just have to watch this at this point and see how it evolves. Really, once it moves into the Caribbean, I think that'll be really the time frame to watch this system. Every update that comes down, it'll give us just a little more piece of that puzzle, so we can give you a better forecast on what to expect. So guys, nothing to worry about right now. Today we're looking at decent weather across Tampa Bay. We'll see those typical afternoon showers and storms. Same thing Friday and Saturday. But the impacts, at least given the current forecast, wouldn't be something to really prepare for until we get into early next week. And obviously that's going to change as well as the system evolves and the forecast cone gets closer, and that forecast gets a little bit more confident, because right now there's not a lot of confidence in that longer range forecast. So guys, I appreciate you tuning in. That's the latest update. We'll have another update coming later this morning with the 11 o'clock advisory. If you want to check in between those, you can always go to our website on 10tampabay.com/tropics. We've got the latest forecast maps there, the latest cones, and just other things that you might want to check out about how to prepare for hurricane season, because look, it's here, and we've got our first system that could potentially be heading towards us, so we need to be ready for those impacts. And I know we do. Tampa Bay and Florida, we always do a great job of preparing, but it's time to do that. So it's time to start getting in that mindset and start checking back for all those hurricane updates coming from the Hurricane Center. So guys, have a good rest of your Thursday. Appreciate you tuning in, and we'll be in touch. Stay safe, and